Well, it's me again, Dr. Swanson here in the 362 class. And what we're going to talk about now is topic 2. I got all these pages. Am I going to get through all this? This is my plan. We'll see. This is the topic 2 video introduction, strategic writing and public relations. Okay, so in topic 1, we dealt with strategic writing, which is kind of like the overview picture of why writing has to result from a plan. And now we're going to allow you to practice in a more specific way the skills that we talked about in topic 1. So you'll need to rely on that step-by-step writing process structure that you read about and that you used on the coworker memo assignment, because that step-by-step process is really important. I hope that you're reading my feedback that I'm giving on the assignments, because that feedback will help focus you and guide you and move you in the right direction. I hope that you have perhaps downloaded a copy of Swanson's Common Copy Errors, because that document has the errors that piss me off the most. The errors that come up often. And seriously, if it's on there, if it's in Common Copy Errors and you keep making that mistake over and over again, I go, why? Why? I'm trying to give you the answers here. You know, it's not often. Professors will give you the answers. I will do that. So anyway, the assignments that we're going to work on here in topic 2 are things like the news release and the backgrounder. The general fact set is the same for the news release and the backgrounder, but keep in mind, these are 2 very different kinds of documents. The news release is kind of like the keystone of public relations writing. It's what we send to a media person to tell that person, hey, this is a good story. You ought to run this story. We do that for clients to get clients' attention, to get attention in the media for our clients. We do that to get what's called third-party endorsement. In other words, psychologically, if you, as a viewer of the media, if you see a story in the news presented from an objective news standpoint, you are more likely to accept the ideas in that story than if you saw those same ideas in an ad, because third-party endorsement is working here. You see the media outlet as endorsing what it is they're talking about. So we like to get third-party endorsement for our clients because it makes the client's ideas seem more credible. And the news release is like the keystone for that. If you can write a news release well, you can pretty much write anything well, because the news release is the ultimate balance. It's the ultimate balance of art and craft. It has to follow a certain structure, because if a news release doesn't follow a particular structure, you know what happens? The media person opens it up and they go, they throw it away. Or if it's on the computer, they go, delete. So it's got to be structured like a news release. And it's got to be creative. It's got to be written like a news story. It's got to have interesting sentences and descriptive words. It's got to tell a good story that makes the gatekeeper go, ooh, wow, this would be a great story for our newspaper, our magazine, our TV news operation, our radio station, whatever. It's got to tell a great story. So the news release has to have this effective balance of craft or structure and art or story. And if it's got that, it's got a great chance of being used. Now, that said, 80% of news releases sent to the media don't get used. Remember that. 80% of news releases sent to the media don't get used. Why is that? Well, a lot of times they don't get used because they look like garbage. Either structurally they're not right, or from an artistic standpoint, they tell a terrible story. I've got a file full of news releases that make you go, they're awful, because they are. So that's one key reason that a news release won't get used. Sometimes it's also because the news release is just sent to the wrong medium. It doesn't fit. Long story short, years ago, I was a student newspaper advisor at Oklahoma Baptist University, and we would get a news release every year from Playboy magazine. Playboy magazine did an annual sex survey of college students. What kind of sex are they having? Who are they having it with? Where are they having it? Do they like it? all those fascinating questions. And the results were sent out every year, and the results came to us at Oklahoma Baptist University. What's the chance that we would have run a story like that in the student newspaper? Zero. Actually less than zero. I mean, to Baptists, dancing is sinful. 0. Now, the news release made its way around the newsroom, and all the students read it and was like, "Ooh, this is interesting," but we would never publish it. So, if you're sending out a news release, you got to send it to the right place. You got to send it to a news media organization that's likely to use it. So, news releases sent to the wrong place don't get used. And then there's also things that are outside your control. You send out a really good news release on the day that there's a 6-alarm fire. It's not going to get used because the TV station is like all over that fire, and they're not interested in what the Boy Scouts are doing or whatever it is you wrote them about. So, some of the things are outside your control, some are not, but just keep that in mind. So when the odds are already so low of your news release getting used, 20% of the news releases get used. So the odds, it's already pretty low. You don't want to make that any worse by writing a news release that's junk. I mean, you really got to be attentive to it. So we're going to practice that here. You're going to write a draft copy. I'm going to give you feedback, and then you're going to write a final copy and submit it later. So use that to your advantage, because I do the drafting on the news release because it's so important. I really want to get you to think about it. Also be aware in that news release, everything that's on the fact set doesn't have to go on the news release. This is a key concept thing. You're the PR writer, you're the editor, you decide what goes in the news release. You get to make that decision. Just because something is on a sheet of paper doesn't mean it goes in the news release. I've had clients in the past that go, "I gave you all these facts and you didn't use them all in the news release." And I go, because all those facts were not needed, and some of them were just plain nuts. So, a PR person, a PR writer, you are the editor here. You are the gatekeeper. You get to decide what goes in this news release. And don't put anything in there that works against you. Don't put anything in there that is like shooting yourself in the foot. Don't do that. There might be something like that buried in the fact set for our news release. Don't use it. If it's going to make your situation worse, don't use it. That's strategy. Strategy at play. Okay. We also got a backgrounder coming up. What's a backgrounder? Well, from the same fact set, you're going to write a background statement about the client organization. A backgrounder is not a news release, and a news release is not a backgrounder. Sometimes they're used together, but they're not the same thing. So make sure you've checked the readings on that, and you're really clear in your head what a backgrounder is and why it's not a news release and why a news release is not a backgrounder. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you here? There is some content in Canvas you'll find in this topic area that doesn't directly relate to a news release. Why is it in there? It's in there because conceptually I want you to be thinking about audiences and publics and about gatekeepers. In order to effectively send a news release to a gatekeeper, you got to think like they think. You got to think like what's going on in the newsroom. You got to know what their work is like. And I'll tell you, because I've been a gatekeeper in radio, in newspapers, in television. I was a writer in PR, so I guess you could call me a gatekeeper. I was a writer in a PR agency. But anyway, I've been a gatekeeper. Probably my biggest gatekeeping role was I was an assignments manager for a TV station in Albuquerque. I was responsible for all the assignments that resulted in stories on the news that day. And let me tell you, gatekeepers like that are very, very busy people. I mean, at my desk, I had TV screens going up there. I had the police radio. I had our two-way radio. I had my news director barking at me. I had photographers and reporters barking at me. It's just like this constant chaos. That's how gatekeepers work. And you got to understand that, and you got to write to them in a way that cuts through that chaos and gets to what is really important for them. And you don't always make it. It doesn't always work, but you got to think like they think. And bottom line, you've got to present them with a story idea that will hit their hot button, and it'll be right for their audience. If you give them a story idea that won't hit their hot button, it's not right for their audience, then you're in that 80% that doesn't get used. So it's really important to think like gatekeepers think, because ultimately, in the news release, that's who you're writing for. You're not writing the news release for the public out there. You're writing it for the gatekeeper, because if the gatekeeper doesn't accept it, it'll never get to the public out there. That's a key concept item. So anyway, look at all the stuff I've got in Canvas in this topic area, because all of it relates to this kind of thing. All of it relates to the idea of we, PR people, are here to make the work of news media gatekeepers easier. We are here to help them do their job. And that's why we have to write the news release with that in mind. How can I help this person do their job? That's what our work is all about. And that's a key concept idea of public relations writing. Okay, I've burned up enough time on the clock. Those are the things I want to talk about for this topic area. Again, anytime you have any questions, reach out to me. I am here to help you succeed. And let me say too, if I haven't said this already, writing is hard. PR writing is hard. I get it. So I'm with you. If you're feeling like, oh, this is really hard. Yeah, it is. Because if this was easy, everybody would be doing it. I got my first crack at being a PR writer when I was a freshman in college. I got a job in the University News Services office. It took me a week to turn my first press release because the editor kept just destroying my copy, just circle, try again. And it took me a week to get it done. So I know how tough it is. But after you've done this for a while, it gets easier. And the more you practice, the more easier it gets. And eventually, you'll have a set of templates in your head, and you'll be able to sit down and just bang this stuff out. I've been doing this long enough. I've got the templates in my head. If you said to me, Swanson, here's a fact set. I need a PSA in an hour. I could have you a darn good PSA in an hour, probably in 30 minutes. And you will get to that point if you practice. If you follow the concept ideas from this course, use this course as your starting point, you're going to be an excellent public relations writer. You'll get there. But is it hard? Yeah. I'm here to help you though. We'll get through it together. So that's topic 2. Thank you very much for your time and attention.